if there's anyone within hip hop that can trace their origins or their studies back to Africa, they have to prove it. They have to go show you how they went for 6 or 8 or 10 or 12 months back to Africa to study. If somebody goes back to Africa for 1 week or for 2 weeks, they have to give you the itinerary. What did they do during those 2 weeks? Did they go back and study the vocals, traditions of which tribe? And how did that influence them in their music? I don't think I can find any musical journals of anybody saying that they went back to the Ashanti or they went back to the Yoruba, saying I went there to study and then this influenced me to be able to, for me to exercise the musical genre that I do now. In salsa, you've got to go back and study the African beats. It's not like let's jam. You've got to learn how it's done, especially if you're a master percussionist. You've got to go into Omo Anya to study Omo Anya within the Lukumi religion. Omo Anya means son of the drum. These things are handed down the same way, the same beats, the same thing in Africa. In other words, you are now a master drummer in the African tradition. And this happens in salsa. You can be a street drummer, but even if you're a street drummer, you're picking it up from a master drummer. So it took the Africans 15,000 years to develop their percussion language. So you can't tell me a master drummer, I got this new beat. Well, if you got a new beat, you've just beat 15,000 years worth of development. It's very difficult to do.
And the hip hop?
Well, in hip hop, for example, it's all male oriented, you know, and it's all challenging, you know, it's very aggressively challenging. The females don't involve, they're not involved at all. They're lessened to a role of maybe just objects. And when the hip hop guys dance, they don't dance with women, they dance with each other. And there's no social contact dancing. You can't meet a woman at a hip hop dance. It's very difficult because you're just going through your beats, your break dancing, whatever it is. Where does she come in? How does she get involved? How do you get to meet her? Where's the social contact? So it's all male oriented, completely excluding female social contact.
And what about today's B girls, the girls that dance and do the same thing the guys do?
Yeah, well, that's what you call a subculture within hip hop. If you take a look at hip hop around the world, the B girls might be limited to Brooklyn. You can't find any of them in England. You can't find any of them in Russia.
They are considered.
No, you can nowadays.
Yeah. In what percentage? Okay, let's take the percentage of B boys and B girls.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, it's the B girls, for example, in Peru. They because of the social thing, they're probably not even allowed to do it. It's bad enough that the guys are doing it, you know.
And some places it's definitely still like that,
so
yeah.
It's a very small percentage. It's a subculture. It's not like the male-dominated hip-hop culture where the males are the MC, the males are the DJs, the males are the breakdancers. If there's B girls and all they're doing is dancing, they're out of hip-hop because hip-hop has 4 elements to it. Graffiti, art, it has MCing, it has DJing, and the dancing. So if all they're doing is dancing, they're missing the other 3 elements. These B girls better learn graffiti, MCing, and DJing.
Gotcha.
They're missing the other 3 elements. And so the actual dancing in salsa comes from English country dancing. In my research, the 45 tribes that were transported to the Spanish-speaking Caribbean, the male does not touch the female when they dance. They're either addressing the deities or they're doing something. There's a connection with the improvisational drum where they're doing something with the drum. The female has her choreography and she's doing call, response, singing, but never does the male go over and put her hand. The male African never puts his hand around the African female waist and hold her hand. So in salsa, there are certain African sensual movements. Needless to say, they're explicably African. But the social contact dancing in salsa comes from English country dancing. In 1651, which is 1 year after Juan de Pareja was painted, you have to know timeline. They're not related, but look how they converge. In 1651, there's a book written in England called The English Country Dancer. It was written by a man called John Playford. It's very popular because country dancing, even here in the United States, it comes from it. You know the line dancing that they do?
Right.
The thing is that in English country dancing, the man actually touches the woman. So, the English Country Dancer, the book comes out in 1651. This man just goes around the countryside looking at music and look at the dancing of people in the countryside, the peasants, the farmers that are celebrating the fact that they had a very good crop. That means that they're going to make it through the winter. They're not going to starve. So they celebrate. You know, they have dances, country dances. So this man took the steps and the music, put a book into it. He came up with 250 English country dances. So you make a book in 1651 of these dances. Who's going to take a look at it? The rich people. The reason why they took a look, the middle class, the people that can afford a book, the people that can read, the people that have somebody that will play the music for them. It's moneyed people. You take music and dancing from the countryside, from peasants, and you bring it to the middle class. Now one of the reasons why it became very popular, this book, is because in 1650s, it was one at the end, or the last vestiges of the Black Plague. So these people that had money, they didn't want to go out and be exposed to the Black Plague. So they would have parties where they knew everyone there. Of course, they all had money, and they would go through this book because this is the way they would entertain themselves. So this English country dancing becomes very popular with the kings. If you remember, the wealthy people, you know, they teach the kings how to dance, and they fall in love with it. First of all, because it's very, very private. You know, we do it ourselves. You learn the steps. Okay. So Mr. John Playford went back out again and got some more English country dances and put out a second version. It was so popular that when he died, this business of doing English country dancing was so, how do I say this, popular, and also it gave him money, that his children also put out books of English country dancing. So altogether, I think there are 4 different tomes, 250, 360, 300 plus dancing in 4 or 5 tomes. So this book, this English country dancing, is in the courts of the kings and the queens. And the English people, the English court, gives it to the French. You know, rich people, we're dancing amongst ourselves. We're not dealing with anyone else. They give it to the French. The French bring it to Haiti, where it becomes the contredanse. The Africans in Hispaniola, they look at this country dancing where the male is actually touching the woman, and they say, this is very interesting stuff. So then they start doing the contra dance, but adding, of course, their own, because they already have their own natural rhythms.
Right.
Okay, so the Africans learn about social contact dancing from the French, the contra dance. When the Haitians decide to rebel, or how do I say this, become independent from Napoleon, Napoleon sends in his cannons to try and quell this independent rebellion. So these people are jumping off of the island of Hispaniola. Go to your geography. You'll see, look at the tip of Hispaniola, how close it is to the eastern part of Cuba, where you have the changui, where you have the song, where people dance with each other, because they got it from people that were jumping off of Hispaniola during their independence movement. And now Cuba has eastern tip where you have changui and you have song, and they actually hold each other, and there's a cordillera right in the middle of it, and you look at the rest of Cuba, it's all African. It's all comparsa, it's all guaguancó, where the man doesn't dance with the woman, he's just doing his thing. But in the eastern part of Cuba, you have not only the contredanse that comes in, where the man is touching the woman, but also you have changui, you have rhythms that came from the French Africans that gave Cuba the song. So if it wasn't for that transition, there wouldn't be any dancing or wouldn't be any song in Cuba. So then what happens is that they're jumping off the island and they're bringing it to different, not only Cuba, but the Dominican Republic, et cetera, et cetera. And when people are, playing music and you can actually hold the woman in your arms, it becomes very popular as you just,
So
doing the
basically, it's
thing.
spread throughout the Caribbean.